Hello, welcome back. This is video number 4 for our junk journal, a remote workshop. So you should have been watching our introduction video. Number 2, picking our papers for the inside pages, picking our pages, and then a video on some of the supply options. And today we're going to be actually starting to do the work in our journal. So we're going to be actually putting some gesso on the pages. And then I will flip over to a separate video, which will actually get into the binding. So this is kind of a twist. You've got 2 options here in terms of whether you could do video 4 first or video 5 first in terms of actual production. In an ideal situation, everybody out there would each have their own set of tools. Everyone would have an awl or some object to poke holes into their folds, and everybody would have a needle. Everybody would, have all of that all at one time. But that may not be your scenario, and that's okay. If you have shared supplies, what may work really well for you is some of you can be gessoing, while others of you are starting your binding. You can do either one. When I worked with my teens up here in the Palatine POC, we actually constructed and did the binding first, and then we gessoed our pages. So if we're gessoing a bound journal, our issue is going to be keeping the pages separated, because if you let the pages close on one another, that gesso is going to dry and your pages are going to stick. It's still going to be an issue for you. If you do them before you do the binding, you're still going to have a place to lay them out and let them dry completely. Or when you put them into your Ziploc bags at the end of your session, they're still going to stick together. So either way, have that wax paper handy because you're going to want to make sure you stick that in between any of your wet pages, whether we're here on the gesso process or as we get further along and we're gluing and painting and doing all that other kinds of stuff. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. Now, this is going to be very high tech because I was practicing this, and I'm basically going to take my cell phone, turn it off of the selfie mode, and flip it around and balance it on top of a jar of Mod Podge. So if the phone crashes, you know that it slipped off the jar of Mod Podge. One of these days we'll have some high-tech video equipment or something, but until then, we make do. All right, so hold on. Let me flip this. Oh, that didn't work. Oh, can I not flip it? Well, that's a problem. I guess I can't go out of this mode and flip the phone once I'm recording. All right, so we won't be balancing on top of the Mod Podge jar. Let me see if I can somehow put this down. Oh, for heaven's sake. Okay, so this is going to be a one-handed job. I can tell that right now. Okay, so here we have some of the pages that I had picked out. How you apply your gesso is really going to be up to you. In a classroom environment, you're probably going to be having your gesso inside those little Dixie cups that we had talked about. You don't need a lot of gesso. Don't blow through a lot of materials because it doesn't take that much to fill up your pages. So just maybe do, a little blob in the bottom. And you're likely going to be having either the sponges with the handles, or you'll have these cosmetic sponges that we talked about. Which, of course, mine fell to the floor. Oh, good thing I do a lot of yoga and I can actually be on a high stool and reach all the way to the floor to pick up my sponges. This is hilarious. Okay, are you ready? All right. So with the gesso, you really don't want to gob your gesso. You want to have a real thin coverage. So whether you decide that you want to do like a tapping kind of sensation, but if you look on this, it's a pretty thin layer. I don't need a big, thick gob of gesso like that. You just want to get the paper covered up a little bit, and how you do that, it really doesn't matter. You can swirl it, you can push it, you can pounce it. I actually am someone who likes spatulas. I like to spread my gesso like that, but... So, can you see this? Okay, so there you go. So you can still see, you know, the words and things through that gesso. That's totally okay. The only purpose of the gesso is to give the paper some grip so that the paint has something to attach itself to. And I can show you this. I've got a girlfriend who actually introduced me to this project, and she's like, I never gesso my pages. It's, you know, and she did that. She's fine with it. Personally, I don't like the way the paint adheres to the paper if it's not gessoed. So I am a big gesso person. So go ahead now and do that to all of your pages. You are going to have to go in here and do fronts and backs, because remember, we're going to be working on both sides of the paper. So go ahead, get some of those pages done, and make sure you've got some place where you can lay them all out on your table. This is a pretty fast process, actually, when they're not bound together. You know, and maybe, you know, honestly, that's probably your best deal, especially since you girls have only about an hour every time you meet. Okay, there. See that? You can still see through the gesso. All right, we're going to have to give that a few minutes to dry, so I really can't flip it over to do the back. So I'm going to go to another piece and work on that. I'm going to put you on pause, and then after you have all of your pages gessoed, we're going to come back and we're going to look at doing the binding, okay?